and things like that, like everybody else. When I heard that this mask mandate had come up again, I felt like I had an obligation to at least come and say something about this. And since most of what I've heard so far at least touched on what I wanted to say, I'm going to try to talk about what I have not heard addressed so far. This is something that was in Primary Doctor online here that's talking about research by Dr. Fauci in 2008. The Journal of Infectious Diseases published that showed that bacterial pneumonia was found to be the cause of death in all, uniformly, of the specimens that they studied from the autopsies of people who died in the 1918-1919 Spanish flu and that pandemic. That pandemic was by far the largest in centuries. It claimed the lives of 50 million to 100 million people, with wide variation in those numbers due to overlap from post-World War I famine and sorting out who died from which cause. At any rate, with either figure, the pandemic killed 3 to 6% of the world's population at that time. Most people assumed that the microbial killer was the influenza virus. But Dr. Fauci's research indicates that no, the cause of death in all of the cadavers they examined was bacterial pneumonia. That was from common upper respiratory tract bacteria, although the research team considers the possibility of viral bacterial copathogenesis. The conclusions were clearly expressed. Dr. Fauci and his team found in their conclusion the majority of deaths in the 1918-1919 influenza pandemic likely resulted directly from secondary bacterial pneumonia caused by common upper respiratory tract bacteria. If you look at any of the studies that the people have come up here with tonight talking about masks and talking about the risks of mask wearing, you will find a theme throughout all of those studies is that there is a bacterial component to the use of masks. By using the mask, you're increasing your CO2, you're decreasing your oxygen levels, and you're making it so that you are concentrating the bacteria that your body is exhausting from your mouth and nose. God made us miraculous creatures with miraculous bodies that fearfully and wonderfully made. For us to take what he made, the breath of life that he put in us, and say, you know what? You did a crummy job. We're going to have to modify this in a way that will prevent us from getting something that you didn't come up with or think about ahead of time. And I, for one, personally don't believe this is true. And I believe that we are about, as a society, not just locally, but as a society, about to embark on the exact same mistakes that were made back 100 years ago. You can look up now, and you can look up the mask protests back then. You can look up information that had to do with, do a search that says, unmasked buried the masked. Why? Because that was a common theme back then. The unmasked buried the masked. People who are getting these bacterial pneumonias, people who are getting these viruses, what's the difference between them? Who's getting the most problems with their situation? Is it people who come in contact with the virus? This virus is very survivable. Look at the percentage rates. But what's happening when we're adding masks? We're adding, lack of sunlight, putting people inside. We're doing everything opposite of what we should. Do a search on the masks and the social distancing and what we've done with the shutdowns, causing 10 times, estimated 10 times the amount of deaths in the long run than if we'd have just let nature take its course. Healthy people going and doing things that they normally do will come in contact with this situation, and they won't get sick. Why? Because their vitamin D levels are okay, their health is good, and once they get that virus and they don't have any symptoms, they're going to get over it, and they're going to go out and they're not going to spread it. What we're doing is we're prolonging the spread. Please vote against this mask mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.